Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the number one liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and I'd like to extend a special welcome to all of the new folks. I'm assuming there's new folks. You always have to assume there's new folks, because of the fact that I have been getting an incredible amount of traction on X. And so I am hoping that there are some new people who are watching, because, you know, it's sometimes you just got to find some new things that are out there. And I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate all my Whiskey Warrior P1s. And for all of you new folks, hopefully you as well will become a Whiskey Warrior P1. Now, somebody might ask me, how does that happen? It's pretty simple. You show up and you interact with folks. You interact with me. We discuss, we talk, we do all kinds of things. You jump in the chat. You start talking to folks in the chat. You provide highly intelligent conversation. And not only that, but even more importantly, especially, you subscribe and you follow, and that makes you a Whiskey Warrior P1. All right, so we've got to get on to the program, because I have got I've got a jam-packed show. In fact, I already know I'm not going to get halfway through all of this material. There's just so much stuff that has been going on in the last, since I last broadcasted. It's just amazing. I have a fantastic pet of the week for this week, and also the interesting thing about this is the submitter did such a good job. I literally didn't have to do hardly anything. I mean, she put it into order. She has it all set up and told me everything on all of the pictures. I mean, it was just fantastic. So yeah, it's just great. I am looking forward to it. It's a really good pet of the week, and of course that's a happy segment, and everybody likes that. So we're going to do that as well. But of course, before I get into that, we have to do the requisite. It's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me and at least trying something new. I know that you may not like it, and that's fine, because that's just how things go. But if you do, I would appreciate you hanging out and becoming a Whiskey Warrior P1. That would just be fantastic. Okay, so first things first, let me get this out of the way. Tonight is, of course, tonight I am drinking the Jameson Black Barrel. This is one of my favorites. It is an Irish whiskey. It's not a bourbon. Sorry, Bonnie. But it is one of my favorites. And I am drinking it in the True Grit Roots Network tumbler glass with, of course, my whiskey stones in the bottom. And it is... well, it's good stuff. I know Bonnie doesn't like it. She keeps saying nasty and shame and all that other stuff. But anyway, I like it. I enjoy it. So we have that. And, of course, because it is, I'm drinking out of the TGRN tumbler, we have, I'm going to talk to you about TGRN.net, which, of course, is True Grit Roots Network. Fantastic blues channel. And, you know, of course, I might be a little biased because I'm part owner in the company, but if you are into blues, fantastic blues mixes, you really ought to go and check us out. Go to tgrn.net, and you can download our app to listen, or you can find us in the Live 365 catalog of digital radio stations. But I want to tell you about one of our shows This is Queens of the Blues, and it's hosted by Gina Coleman, who is from the band Misty Blues, and she explores the fertile landscape of female artists who were at the foundation of early recorded blues and celebrate music created by female blues artists up to present times. On occasion, the show will also give space for Gina's friends from varied creative backgrounds to share the music of their most admired female blues artists and how they've influenced their artistry. Airs Sunday, 1 p.m. Central Time. So Central Time from 1 to 2, you can listen to Queens of the Blues on tgrn.net or our affiliated apps. And of course, TGRN is True Grit Roots Network based out of Austin, Texas, breaking boundaries for authentic blues radio. TGRN.net, Austin, Texas. And of course, like I said, I am a part owner in that endeavor, and it is a fantastic. A lot of people have gone there, and we've only launched the Blues channel for a couple of months, and it's been just incredible. So we do appreciate all of your support, and of course, the support here on the Whiskey Musings broadcast as well. Okay, so I got an interesting, as I was kind of putting together tonight's show, I got an interesting inquiry from one of my mutual followers on X. And this individual, I've interacted with them here and there, and this gentleman is, in my mind, a very, conservative. He does live in a liberal area. And he had noticed that a lot of my posts that I put on X, I constantly put in there something along the lines of, well, it's not over yet. We still have time. We still have opportunity. And so he went and sent me this. Let me go ahead and read this to you. He says, "You've said a few times now that you hope it's not too far gone. What evidence do you have that it's able to be saved? No one has ever given me any evidence that we can make a comeback. I'm seriously asking, not just trying to be difficult. What evidence does your hope grow from?" Now, normally I would answer a question like this on Saturday nights, okay, as part of a question for whiskey, but this is really important, especially coming on the heels of what a lot of people might think is essentially a loss. Last night we didn't win. We didn't lose necessarily. We kept a few things that we should have kept, and we're high pressure and everything else. But here's the thing. I spend a lot of time looking at the individual pieces and small parts. So where do I get my hope from? Well, the first thing that I get my hope from is all of you coming here to watch this program, to listen to what I have to say. Because when I started this thing out 3 years ago, I didn't realize, I didn't even really know where it was going to go, and it sort of morphed into what it is today. And that's what got the boost. I get inspired and get my hope from watching third-party, non-mainstream entities like Rumble, for an example, take off. Because they are specifically built on the idea of things like free speech. I sit here and I look at things like my youngest whiskey warrior, who goes and purchases a Constitution of the United States and not only carries it around with him to all the places that he goes to, but is featured in photos with it. I mean, he carried his copy all the way to Washington, D.C. and put it in the same room with the actual U.S. Constitution. It's things like seeing young people who normally, your normal, like I open up a door for somebody and I get non-responsive answers, but then out of maybe 10 people, there might be one that responds, "Hey, thank you," or "I appreciate it." Something along those lines. And vice versa. Every so often I do run across someone who actually opens up the door for somebody. So there's a bunch of, and I'm not going to say it's far and wide like it used to be, because let's just be honest, we as conservatives and America and our way of life has been under consistent and constant assault for at least the last 40 to 50 years. It has taken them this long to get us to the precipice where we're at. Now, do I honestly believe that we're done? No. And the reason why I say no is because there have been times throughout our history where we have been on a supposed precipice and we fought our way back. That's the indelible American spirit. That's the American drive. Because if you think about it, 13 colonies all banded together back in 1776 against what was, at the time, the world's superpower, Army and Navy. And they were able to gain their independence. They spent their time crafting what is still to this day a fantastic document, provided that it is followed correctly. A absolute fantastic document, the first ever, never before seen government that was built for the people, by the people, where the people are supposed to be in control. We've allowed us to get us to this point, and I just am not ready to give it up, because the minute that you give up hope, the minute that you give up the idea that all is lost, then everybody who is out here, all of my Whiskey Warrior P1s, including you and your son, by the way, because your son, you've posted pictures of him doing things and working and gaining skills and all of those things that most of the time, rather he could be sitting and playing video games or something. He could be, marching, being one of the Antifa people. Look to your own son for inspiration, because he is doing things. Granted, you're teaching him, but he's deciding to follow that. It's these young people today, like, I can't think of her name, but Jordan on X, where she is, clearly defiant and definitely what would be considered MAGA, for sure. And she's behind Trump all the way. Now, I haven't made my reservations about Trump very unknown here, but the fact of the matter is, should he win the nomination, and it looks like he's going to, I will be 100% behind him, because that's the position that we're in. And unfortunately, the rest of the Republican Party hasn't quite figured that out yet. We're not in a position where we can afford to pick and choose in certain cases. You have to go with what is going to get us the best gains. Now, I will never quit. I am not going to stop being long on America and being having faith in the fact that we are going to eventually pull this out. Will it end up being in my lifetime? Maybe not. But I'm certainly going to do everything I can between this program, between teaching my kids, between selling and putting out things like the Constitution of the United States here. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that America and her glorious time is well known. That's where my hope comes from. And the evidence that I have is the fact that we still have people who are out there willing to fight for her. That we have people who come and join in programs like mine, like Louder with Crowder, like Dan Bongino, like Mark Levin. We had what is the #1 radio personality ever in the history of radio in the name of Rush Limbaugh, and he was a conservative to the core. It's those kinds of things that keep me going. That's the evidence that we need. And we're still seeing things today that are occurring. Granted, they're small, and they're not being transmitted or communicated very well because we have the deck stacked against us as of right now. But the tide's going to turn. The tide is going to turn. And the signs are there. They are out there for us to just take comfort in. They may be small signs, but it's always the small things that make the difference. The big things happen, but it's always the small things. And besides, I mean, let's be honest. We have a book. We have a book out there that tells us how all of this is going to end. My faith is there. You may not have the same faith that I do, but I can tell you this much. My faith is there. And the Bible tells me how it's all going to end. So we just need to get the right people in the right spots. We need to have the right strategy and the right messaging. Because that's really our problem right now is the messaging. I mean, as far as, and understand, I am not a Republican. Not by a long shot. I'm a strict conservative. That's what I claim to be. That's what I'm always going to claim to be. Because I don't have allegiances to any specific political party. But what I do have is I have an oath that I swore back in 1990 to this document, to protect and defend this document until I die. And granted, it may not have meant a lot when I was 18, 19 years old, but it does to me today. And so that's where my hope comes from. I still think we can turn this around. I don't think all is lost yet, but I do think 2024 is going to be a pivotal moment in this battle. It's going to be a pivotal moment in this battle. So hopefully that answers your question, sir. I hope that answers your question. All right. So let me go ahead and move on. Let's get out of that. All right. Speaking of X, okay. Speaking of X, I posted something on X that, and honestly, like I've said, I mean, my engagement rate over the last 7 days is just been amazing. I'll be honest with you. If you're watching me on X and if you're following me on X, I do appreciate that. I really, really do. You guys have given me, you folks have given me hope. But one of the things that I did is Elizabeth Warren, for whatever reason, her intern, I mean, let's be honest, most of these people, they probably don't tweet or X, whatever it is, post on X all the time. But she posted a post, and granted, she posted something the day before that was dealing with, anti-Semitism, anti-Israeli. So she did at least do that. And I was unaware of that tweet. I hadn't seen it. But that being said, I responded back. I'm not going to delete what I said because what I said still stands. But I did accept the fact that, hey, that she actually did talk about anti-Israeli hate and so on and so forth the day prior. However, I'm not the only one that picked up on this. So taking a look at this. Elizabeth Warren is mercilessly slammed for an Islamophobia post right after a Jewish man is murdered. So the Jewish man was down in Thousand Oaks, California. He got hit on the head, allegedly hit on the head by one of the pro-Palestine protesters, and he dropped down and was hit hard enough that his head slammed into the pavement. Now, he ultimately ended up dying because of the blunt force trauma. And supposedly early reports coming out about the autopsy show that his death has been listed as a homicide. They are investigating. Okay. But the thing about it is that whoever posted this tweet, or X, whatever you call it, did it with knowing that there was an individual who had died the day before. So here's the thing, and this is my take on this entire situation. You are talking about, number one, you are talking about the fact that the first, by all metrics in FBI statistics and analyses, the number one religious group that is attacked every year is the Jews. They are always number one at the top of the list of religious hate. Underneath that, you have Sikhs, who most people mistake for Muslim. And the whole Islamophobia thing, especially right now, is really not going anywhere. Okay. So, you know, to even sit here and try and equate, which is what this administration is doing, is they're sitting there and trying to equate anything dealing with Islamophobia. Now, I can tell you after 9/11, there was a lot of Islamophobia that was running around. But to sit here and try and push Islamophobia over the top of the facts that anti-Jewish hate in particular is very, very high, to go and even talk about Islamophobia over the top of that and not even recognize, or, I mean, all hate is bad. Okay. All hate is bad. No one should hate anyone, realistically. And we definitely shouldn't have people attacking them. That's our Western thoughts, regardless of who it is, whether white, black, Asian, whether it's skin color, whether it's religion, anything. It's the audacity of this administration, and especially these Democrats, that are all focused on Islamophobia when it's not Islamophobia that is the problem right now. Is just a slap in the face. And so that's essentially what I was asking Elizabeth Warren, not so much in so many words, but that was essentially what I was asking her. And so, you know, it was very poorly done and she got called on it. And that's what needs to happen, is we need to call these folks out when they do that. Same thing with Rashida Tlaib. Rashida Tlaib has gotten censured. Now, just like with Adam Schiff, getting censured is basically just the House saying you did something bad. We're gonna put it in your record, and that's it. We're putting it on your file. There's nothing that really comes out of that kind of a thing. Okay, but you know, she has a consistent anti-Israeli take. And what's funny about this is that every single one of these people, every single one of these people are required by the Constitution, by this little document here, to go and take an oath that they will uphold the Constitution of the United States. And one of the things that is a inherent paramount thing in the Constitution of the United States has to deal with Americans and our equal treatment of everyone under the law. And these people are not doing it. Anybody who sits here and picks one group over another is not following the principles of the Constitution at all. And so this is completely wrong. This, for her to go and get censured, that's the least of what could happen. And of course, the squad, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, they all jumped to her defense. But realistically, she was in the wrong. She was making comments, and she used phrases that were essentially discussing genocide of the Jewish people who live in Israel. She should get censured. That's the least of what should happen. And, I honestly wish that she could get more than just censured. I mean, censorship is nothing at all. All right. So that obviously took place, and I don't have it up here, but I definitely want to discuss it before I go too far here. Before I move on to my next topic, my next section here. But obviously, I mentioned Louder with Crowder here just earlier, and the 3 pages of what is reportedly and allegedly the Nashville Shooters Manifesto has been published and leaked by Louder with Crowder. There isn't anything so far that has come out from any of the organizations that would be in the know, meaning saying that it's not. It's sort of like Hunter Biden's laptop in a way. They never denied that it was his. And so far, the police departments and the FBI have not produced anything to deny that these pages that have been leaked are essentially not the real deal and not authentic. That's the word I was looking for. So that being said, I don't want to necessarily cover it. You can go and take a look. You can actually even see Louder with Crowder's episode on it. And but I can tell you that what has been leaked, which is 3 pages of what is supposedly potentially thousands of pages or hundreds of pages, because of the fact that this person apparently had like 20 of these books, and they focused on what was not part of a typical narrative of the mainstream media and the left. And that they essentially, this individual essentially was spewing a bunch of white hate and said several things that I don't even want to repeat, but what it did do is it showed us the depravity that was running through her mind at the time that she was getting ready to do this. And it was fully pre-planned too. I mean, if she had survived, she would have been arraigned on first-degree murder. It would have been premeditated, et cetera, et cetera. And so, the thing about it is, though, is that particular shooter didn't fit the narrative. And this is part of the reason why the police department couldn't put it out, probably ordered as such to not put it out, more than likely by the FBI. And so they had to resort to what was essentially leakers in order to get, try and suppress it. And I think they were kind of hoping that people would just forget about it with everything going on. And realistically, even now, though, it's mostly just been a blurb, in the news cycle, unfortunately. But anyway, it's very sad what had happened. Both, realistically, a deranged individual. They go and they shoot someplace up. It's obviously a very, very sad event. And as always, it is completely, abhorrent in my mind and that kind of thing. So, but anyway. All right, before I take this break, I got to give a quick shout out to Z over on Rumble. Hi, Z. So there you go. All right. Let me go ahead and tell you about my store. Oh, I got to put this up. So if you like the program and you'd like to help support the program, you can head on over to my store and pick up logoed gear as well as motto gear. Go to store.whiskeymusings.online. That's store.whiskeymusings.online, and you can pick up great products like sweatshirts, t-shirts. I've got some jogging pants there. There's glasses, mugs, water bottles, things like that. There's all variations of those items in both my logo, my Whiskey Musings logo, the mic with the glass and Whiskey Musings over it, and then of course my saying, which is, when I drink, I think. And so, yeah, head on over there, store.whiskeymusings.online. And by the way, if you put in at checkout the term Christmas in the promo code box, that's all capital letters, and it's Christmas in the promo code box, I'll give you 15% off your entire order. That is between now and Christmas. That is between now and Christmas. 15% off. That's my gift to you. 15% off your entire order at going to store.whiskeymusings.online and entering promo code Christmas. All capital letters at checkout. And I thank you for the support. I do. I try to keep the cost fairly low there. So, just even if you go and check it out, if you don't buy anything right today, you can take a look and see what you like. Everybody so far that has gotten products from there, they've all said they're really high quality products as far as, like the sweatshirts have been the most popular. I had an apron go here recently. I told you guys about that last week or last Saturday. So anyway, just go and check it out. We also have caps. Yes, buddy. Buddy says, I got a cap, which this one, it's actually this guy right here. There it is. When I drink, I think Whiskey Musings in black and white. They also have, hey, it's turning into winter. So let me go ahead and put this up. And here is a gaiter. This is, to go around your neck in the cold. You roll it up and you put it over your head, and then you can pull this up over your face when it's cold out and display your Whiskey Warrior P1 fantastic following of the Whiskey Musings broadcast. So anyway, and like I said, I do appreciate all of that. So there we go. All right. Okay. So some interesting things did come out of the election, the very limited election that we had. And so, okay, Amy, I will check on that for you. I just see this. She bought a I'm assuming sweatshirt last week and never got anything but paid for. So check your, I do know that it will automatically send you an email, by the way, but check your spam folder, junk folder, whatever you want to call it. But I'll also take a look after this. Okay. Back to what I was talking about. So one thing that has happened with this is, the elections seem, the limited election that we had, it's an off-year election, so it's a limited election in most of these states. But one of the things that has presented itself just in the last couple of days is, speaking of things like the polls that have been coming out, like 5 out of 6 of the swing states, Trump is leading right now. So, some of that stuff that's happening is, obviously a bit of a concern for the Democrats. But also, what's another concern is, and this is kind of one of the things that I take as a positive, is that we have longtime Dem people, strategists in this particular case. David Axelrod, he used to strategize with the Obama campaign, but he's now publicly suggesting that Biden drop out of the 2024 race. They're starting to get concerned because of these polls. Now, you and I know that polls they're basically just numbers. They mean nothing. They'll show up, they'll have a poll one day and the actual result will be something different the next. So we can't put a lot of stock into these things. However, what it does indicate is a potential movement going off into another direction. And so, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in these. We're also still a year out from 2024. So, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in these, but it does suggest, because of the fact that, and this was brought up too, Biden's approval ratings are the lowest for an incumbent seeking re-election since Jimmy Carter. Now, we all know what happened with Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter tried to run for re-election and got completely wiped out by Ronald Reagan. In fact, Ronald Reagan won 49 or 48 out of 50 states or something like that. 48, 49, I can't remember exactly. But if you look at the electoral map, man, let me tell you, that year, 1980, it is a sea of red, okay? Now, my guess is that the Democrats don't want to see that happening. And so what they're attempting to do is they're trying to figure out how they can get either Joe Biden back in the good graces of everybody, which, by the way, the approval ratings for him, he's been underwater since the Afghanistan withdrawal debacle. Okay. So it's not like he's really gone down and then come back and then gone down and then come back, so on and so forth. This is a bit of a problem for them because even Trump's numbers were higher. Obama's numbers were higher, but they weren't above water. And so what you have here is you have a bit of a problem. And the Democrats recognize it and they know it. In fact, here's some more information that's come out. This also from Red State, that the Biden beatdown continues as a damning poll that shows the coalition that elected him is fraying big time. There's indications within the polls that his normal base that he normally gets, like the black vote, like the Hispanic vote, even some in a little bit in the suburban white women, for an example, that it's just things are not going so well for him. And it just keeps showing up. It's also the Palestinian, this whole thing with Israel, his backing of Israel, even though he's publicly backing Israel, but he's now kind of trying to backstep and be a little wishy-washy on it, calling for a ceasefire, so on and so forth. Joe Biden is the quintessential wherever the wind blows politician. He'll sit there and he will, take whatever. I mean, he can't really afford not to, because he is not a standout politician in any way, shape, or form. And so because of that, he tends to whip with the wind. And so whenever he does that, the winds change, he goes with it. And he'll lie over the top of all that. He gets caught in lies and he doesn't care. But it's even more concerning for Joe Biden and his campaign when Politico's Playbook starts talking about it. Now, if you're a Dan Bongino fan, he tells you Politico's Playbook is basically their roadmap their whistle, their call for, what they need to, all of their talking points and what they need to do. And so when you see something like this, and let me just read you this, this point here about last night's election. So there's no two ways about it. It was another good election night for Democrats nearly across the board. Now, it wasn't exactly what they say it is, but then again, Democrats lie. But Kentucky governor notched a solid reelection win in a ruby red state. That doesn't mean anything because he was the incumbent. Incumbents are difficult to get rid of, to be honest, with brand new people, especially if they do halfway decent. They say a clean sweep of the Virginia legislature shows the party still packs a punch in the suburbs. The actual correction on that, let me just say, is that there was a redistricting. So there was a lot of new people there. And, let's be honest, the Republicans tried to run on essentially zero tolerance for abortion. And that doesn't fly very well. With some folks, especially in Virginia. It might work well in Florida and Georgia, as Dan Bongino pointed out in his broadcast today, but it's not going to work very well in Virginia. And of course, Ohio doing the abortion in on issue 1 in Ohio, where they wanted to add abortion to their constitution. Now, I've maintained multiple times that abortion by itself is not a federal government issue. In fact, in my opinion, it really shouldn't even be a government issue at all. Okay. But that being said, you can't deny the fact that as far as abortion goes, that, roughly 60% of the people, the populace, are supportive of at least first-term abortion. Now, that, when you look, and that's just like consistent across the board. Anytime you do a poll, that pretty much is fairly consistent. It's like a 60-40 split. Now, whether or not you have a personal belief in the death of babies or not, the fact remains that as far as a majority goes, generally speaking, 60% is a majority. So instead of going for the idea of, all babies, we can't do it at all, do like what the Democrats do, which is give us an inch and then take a mile. Give us an inch and then take a mile. And so what we have to do is we have to readjust our discussion with regards to this. And unfortunately, because of the Dobbs decision, even though it was proper and right constitutionally to do that, that doesn't mean that the messaging from the Dems has changed, hardly. So anyway, the point being is that Ohio probably isn't one of those places, but, obviously like Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Mississippi, some of those places, some of what they would consider, what you would call the Bible Belt states, they're going to be more likely where you're going to be able to do the abortion thing. So sitting there and basically trying to do a blanket message across the board for what really is a state by state issue, they need to get their acting gear and figure out what they can and cannot do in each state in order to get there. But the key part in this newsletter is this. So what does it mean for 2024? Democrats are waking up this morning to two theories of the case as it relates to President Joe Biden's quest for re-election. The first one is it's time to chill out. And to them, polls are one thing, actual votes are another. These are not election results consistent with a president whose approval numbers are struggling to break 40% and who is falling badly behind Donald Trump, the most divisive politician of his generation. Yeah, I don't think so. I think Obama takes that. But anyway, they're saying that Andy Bashir won despite tons of GOP money being spent to tie him to Biden. So there's plenty of room for the incumbent to recover. So they're saying that's one of the actions that can be taken. The second one is potentially that it's a time to freak out, that the polls themselves are absolutely right. The problem isn't in the Democratic brand, it's Joe Biden. They're not wrong there, okay? The Democrats have done and it's been very consistent. They have done a fantastic job with their messaging. Even if you don't agree with them, they are in lockstep and they are good at getting the message of the things that they want to put out there. Even though they lie about a lot of it, they have a good messaging machine. The problem that they have is the top of the ticket, which is essentially Joe Biden. And so the question is that they're asking about here is the anti-MAGA, going back to the piece, the anti-MAGA coalition that showed up in 2018, 2020, and 2022 is still intact. Of course it is. That's the 30 to 40% of the Republican base that is 100% behind Trump. Now, they're saying that it's not going to show up for just anybody, and that's true. Trump is certain to bring out his own special universe of voters next year, and Americans are giving every possible signal that they won't be happy if the alternative is an 81-year-old Biden. So they're preparing, just so you guys understand, it sounds like by all of their intents and purposes, they're preparing to get rid of Biden. Now, if you have your own Democrat base that is starting to call this out, and let's be honest, no matter what kind of messaging the White House has been putting out about the economy, nobody's buying it. The whole Bidenomics thing is fallen flat on its face. He has his age going against him. He's got everything that every time he gets in front of a teleprompter, he has a difficult time speaking. He's been shown to trip and fall and all of these things that normally would be concerning for somebody with an elderly parent in that case. But they are essentially, they've by trying to run him again, they've saddled him. They've saddled their horse they put their saddle. Sorry, I'm trying to get this metaphor out and it's not coming out. They're attaching their saddle or their wagon to the oldest horse who's kind of broken down. And so, when you look at, even if you try and compare age, yes, Trump is maybe 3-4 years younger than Biden. Trump shows a lot more energy, a ton more cohesiveness in his cognitive abilities. He doesn't ever fight with the teleprompter. He goes off script a lot, but he doesn't ever really fight with the teleprompter. He is night and day difference in public when you're looking at Trump versus Biden. So if you have that kind of thing, regardless of the messaging that's behind it, if you look at that and you think about things like potentially World War III that we're headed for, like a freight train, who of those two people are you really going to want to have in office? Now, here's where the messaging of the Republicans needs to tighten up. They need to attack Biden on his weak spots. They need to attack Biden on his history. He took what was essentially a really, really good economy and trashed it in 3 years. He has a crack addicted son who apparently has been funneling money for his family, for him to be able to pay in cash for a couple $1 million home. They are now, even now, the House Republicans who have been going after him in their committee hearings have been uncovering all kinds of evidence, irrefutable evidence that's out there. And by the way, as I pointed out a couple episodes ago, they're actually presenting it to the public. They're presenting it to the public, and they're showing the evidence rather than doing an Adam Schiff where it's, oh, just trust me. The evidence is there. He's bad. Just trust me. And not showing anybody anything. They're actually showing stuff. And so this is really going to be the crux of the issue. Now, the biggest problem that we have, or the biggest challenge that we have from a messaging standpoint, is we've got to keep Trump from, believe it or not, talking about Trump. Trump needs to talk about Biden. Trump needs to focus on Biden. Trump needs to forget and not necessarily forget, but at least ignore all of these cases, because every single time that he's been indicted so far, and this is another thing that the Democrats are really scared about, every single time that he's been indicted, his poll numbers have been going up. Okay? So, because his cases realistically are non-starter. There is nobody I won't say nobody, but there's hardly anybody who is going to be in the Trump coalition that's going to dissuade, just because Trump gets convicted by any of these sham trials. To be, it's not going to happen. And so to sit here and to even believe that some of these, that these trials are going to do something, and I've got something, hopefully I can get to it, but I've got something about that here in just a little bit. But anyway, he's just got a lot of baggage. He's got more baggage than even Trump does, which I don't know how anybody could have that, but whatever. She's got more baggage, or Biden's got more baggage that he needs to deal with, and he still believes that he's doing a wonderful job for the country, and he's not even coming close. Speaking of which, on Hunter Biden, the top prosecutor, David Weiss, went and testified yesterday to the House Judiciary Committee, and according to Jim Jordan, now this was a closed-door session. There are transcripts. I haven't really gone and looked for them. There's just been so much out there. I just haven't even tried. But it was transcripts, and according to Jim Jordan, regardless of what David Weiss said, he confirmed one singular thing, and that is the claim by Merrick Garland, or Meritless Garland, as Mark Levin calls him. He confirmed the fact that he did not gain special prosecutor status. That when he attempted to talk to the other special prosecutors across the U.S., that they still, by Department of Justice rules, they still had the ability to say no to David Weiss. And so that's been the claim, the original claim by David Weiss and the IRS whistleblowers, that David Weiss did not have the ability to go into California to prosecute this case. So David Weiss by himself is, he's a really big and key reason as to why Hunter Biden has been essentially not prosecuted, whether it's been due to procedural, or David Weiss himself, even though he says he may have asked for it, he at least confirmed that he did not have special prosecutor status until Merrick Garland gave it to him just a couple of months ago. So that's the key that they're talking about here in terms of this, because what this basically means is that by David Weiss not getting special prosecutor status and not being able to go after Hunter Biden in any other jurisdiction, means that the White House, or the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland in particular, was the man who essentially blocked this situation. And let's see. So, of course, the White House has been stonewalling the House Oversight Committee. And so this happened this afternoon. This happened this afternoon. James Comer, I got to tell you, this guy has got some serious cojones on him. I like him. I mean, I like him just for this. I don't know if I necessarily would have a drink with him or anything, but hey, at least he is trying to go after the truth. And so he has signed subpoenas for Hunter Biden, James Biden and an ex-business associate. Let me see if I can catch up his name, Rob Walker, because apparently they are stonewalling in terms of going after this, getting information, particularly about the loans that supposedly Jim was paying Joe back for. The two checks in particular, the $40,000 check and the $200,000 check that were just released within the last couple of weeks. So now we all know, when you look at like the Obama era and you look at the Trump era, we all know that congressional subpoenas will probably not go anywhere. I mean, people get out of them, it seems, all the time, especially when you're dealing with Joe Biden, because Joe Biden could, say executive privilege or something like that. So once again, we're back to a point of, realistically, is this going to be a big deal? Well, it all depends. So here's the thing, and this, my thought process on this has kind of changed a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily important per se. I don't think it's necessarily important per se to actually go through an entire impeachment trial. I mean, let's be honest with you. We're looking at now very slightly, less than a year out from the 2024 election. I think the continuance of this investigation is switched. It's no longer to get Joe Biden out of office, because let's face it, time is starting to run out. They would have to conclude and potentially pass the information over to the Senate for trial in the next 3 months to make it effective. And then we would only end up with Kamala Harris as president for, whatever was left. So I honestly don't think the overall goal here is to actually impeach Joe Biden. I think what it potentially is strategically, is to essentially smear him bad enough to show that, hey, if you do get elected again, we will hit you with this. I actually think it's a bit of an insurance policy, such as it is, a bit of a gamesmanship kind of play to essentially force Joe Biden out. So out of the idea of actually running for a second term, which when you start stacking this up against his age, against his poor performance and all of that, I mean, Joe honestly could just say, you know what, I'm done. And he could just ride off into the sunset thinking that he won everything. And, we're good. So realistically, I'm not entirely sure that the end goal for the House Republicans right now, because even if they did refer it to the Senate, the chances of him getting removed is pretty slim anyway. So my guess is that they are just doing this in order to try and give the Republicans an edge for whoever wins, whether it ends up being Trump, which it looks likely, over Joe Biden in terms of running again. Because let's face it, there really isn't anybody waiting in the wings that's like so spectacular to run against Trump who would be able to take over. None of the Democrats like Kamala Harris. None of the Democrats like Pete Buttigieg. And Bernie Sanders is just as old as actually even older than Joe. Elizabeth Warren crapped out really easily and early. You do have Gavin Newsom out of California, which, I've heard, don't know this 100%, but I saw an article that said that his polling numbers in California are not going very well. So there is a possibility that even he might not run or get into it, even though everybody kind of says that he's doing a shadow campaign. Time will tell. But yes, we also have, the opportunity for Michelle Obama to get in, although the longer that it goes, the longer Joe Biden waits, the less time or less chance they have for somebody new to get in. There was a person. I saw a short video where somebody was saying that, where the time to file for going into presidency is closing very, very quickly. The door is closing quite quickly for that. So we'll just have to kind of see what goes on with that. But I honestly don't think the idea is to really impeach Joe Biden. I think it's just to demonstrate and show to the American public that, hey, this guy is a complete waste of space. He is corrupt and everything else. We need to get him out of there and make it, and also to have the assurances that, hey, if you actually do run and win a second term, we will impeach you right after that. So anyway, one last thing here about Biden before I move on to my next subject and everything here, my next segment, and my next break here, is that Biden apparently as a part of his passing weapons over to Israel, he apparently put in the request that he did not want any of the weapons to go to private citizens, that he essentially was demanding gun control for Israel, saying that they only had to go to the soldiers. And what he doesn't understand is that everybody in Israel serves in the army as soon as they come out, or the army and even the Navy, because I think they have a Navy and an Air Force, but serves in the military. Everybody serves in the military. So anyway, all right. Let me tell you about this wonderful book I've been showing you all this time about this book. Well, guess what? You can actually get one of these for yourself or for a Christmas gift, because, of course, Christmas is coming up. You can get this by going to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. That's constitution.whiskeymusings.online. This is a fantastic pocket copy of the United States Constitution. Look at this. It is a Saddleback leather bound, 1/8 of an inch of that saddle leather. The inside has tear-resistant and water-resistant pages. Check out this binding. It is stitched string that goes all the way through both the pages and the leather on the outside. The manufacturer of this has a 100-year guarantee on materials and workmanship. If this thing falls apart anytime in 100 years, you can send it back to them and they'll either repair it or replace it for free. My Rumble listeners all tell me and remind me all the time that it has very thick, rounded corners, and I can tell you for a fact that my youngest whiskey warrior used this to get his civics badge in Scouts. It is buddy tested, buddy approved. It is also Billy appreciated, because Billy the dog, one of the outlaw dogs, took it and tried to chew it. So Billy approved. Get you a copy of this. Put it in the stockings of your favorite conservative and your most hated liberals this Christmas by going to constitution.whiskeymusings.online and picking it up right there. And you can obviously support the show in the process by doing it. Once again, that's going to constitution.whiskeymusings.online and get yourself a copy of our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States, in a fantastic format for carrying around. And I, of course, appreciate the purchase, should you decide to do so. All right. So let me go ahead and do this, because I know everybody's been waiting very patiently. Let me just get this kicked off. Let's head on over to our Pet of the Week. And this week's Pet of the Week was submitted by Coco Dominky over on Rumble. And let me explain to you, and I'm telling you, this is really well put together, very long, but let's just go ahead and do this. Here's what Coco Dominky wrote. Hey, Whiskey. Hope all is well. In one of your July episodes, number 214, my cat Bella was Pet of the Week. About a month later, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she passed away on September 13th. I didn't know then that just 1 month later, I would be ready to accept a new baby into my life. But someone was desperate to find her a new family, and I couldn't resist. We received Luna into our lives on October 18th. She is about 4 months old now. After getting to know her, I am now ready to introduce her to you and the fellow Whiskey Warriors. Luna, also known as Luna Petaluna, or Lunatic when she's extra frisky, is extremely playful and lovable. It only took about a week for her to befriend the pups in the house. She loves to play, scratch, knock things over, but she also loves to cuddle. When it's cuddle time, she jumps in my lap and presses her face into mine, demanding that I pet her. She loves playing with my son and the pups too. She is so energetic. She has become a great addition to our family. Thanks, Whiskey. I love Pet of the Week. It is one of my favorite segments. Thanks for taking the time to introduce Luna to everyone. Hugs to you and all. Hugs to you all, meaning all of the Whiskey Warriors. And God bless. Well, thank you for submitting Pet of the Week. So let me go ahead and walk through these 11 photos. Let's get this, let's get her, whoops. Get rid of that and bring up Pet of the Week. Here she is. So this is when she first came home. So this is when Luna first came home, and she was already super cuddly and became queen of the house in an instant, she says. Here she is trying out her new bed, new cave bed, by the way, and where she loves knocking, which she loves knocking over on herself. I don't know how she knocks over her own bed on herself, but I'm sure it can be done. Cats can do all kinds of things. Here she is, she's cuddling into Coco Dominguez's face and neck like this every night and falls asleep. I gotta ask, Coco, maybe you can answer this on the chat, because I know you're in there. Does she try to sleep on your face at all at night? Anyway, okay, so let's move on here. She apparently loves to attack feet, and just about anything that moves. Well, that's the kitten in her. I'm just going to tell you that right now. That's the kitten in her. Although I will have to admit, we have a semi-barn cat that his name's Badger. You've seen his tail walk behind me a couple times. And Badger sometimes sleeps with us at night. And whenever my wife moves in her sleep, he'll attack her feet. He doesn't attack me and my feet, but he'll attack her feet all the time. So it's just a cat nature, I guess. Anyway, moving on. So she also, she fell asleep in the windowsill and got her cat claws stuck in the curtain and just sort of hung there. Yeah, those claws are pesky at times. And here she is, where she also loves taking cat naps on her computer case. It is apparently extra padded, so that's cool. This one is another one of her sleeping poses. Gee, this is like cats sleep. Hello. They sleep like 90 hours a day. But anyway, she apparently stole the dog bed. Yeah. Badger did that too. Poor Angus. Here is where she is discovering Halloween, her first Halloween. She's kind of like figuring out what's going on here. She was very curious about what the heck they were doing with the pumpkins. And let's see. Oh, of course, cats love to climb. Well, apparently Luna decided to climb the screen. Yes. Young kittens. They're just fantastic. And here she is in the bathroom trying to figure out why anyone would purposely submerge themselves in a tub of water. Anyway. All right. And of course, the last one is she loves watching shows. And according to a very reliable source, she loves watching Whiskey Musings. with Coco Dominky, but she kept pausing the show. Obviously, I was moving around enough that it attracted her attention. So she, or the information I was giving was just so informative. She had to stop it in order to take it all in. One or the other. But anyway. Oh, Coco did an awesome job. Thank you very much for sharing little Luna with us. And obviously she's was the perfect addition after the loss of your loved one from before. So thank you for sharing her with us. And of course, if you would like to have your pet featured on Pet of the Week, send in pictures, stories, whatever you want. Obviously this was incredible. This set the bar for anybody else, but send it in to fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. That's fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. And you can get your pet featured on Pet of the Week. Also, I run a segment on Saturdays for all of you newbies. I run a segment on Saturdays that is called Questions for Whiskey. And you can do the exact same thing. You can send in your questions to fans at whiskeymusings.online and get your question answered. Right now, I do not have a question for Saturday, so it's a perfect time for you to get it in there. Hop it in. Get it in. All right. So let me just say this. I've only got a few minutes left here in the program, so I really want to get to this. So this case that's happening up in New York against Donald Trump. So we're going to move from Biden and his problems over to Trump. So this case that's running up in New York that Letitia James likes to tweet about almost every single freaking day on X. There's a few issues with this. And I've tried to explain to some of the liberal morons over on X about this. I forgot to put in, thank you, Outlaw Dogs. So we also have Lucifer, who is a kitty that I've posted or that I've shown on Pet of the Week before from Outlaw Dogs. Lucifer is 12 today. It's her birthday today, Lucifer. Okay. So anyway, moving back to this story. So this trial that's going on. First of all, everybody seems to think it's a criminal trial because they keep saying that he's guilty. They keep saying that Trump is guilty. It is not. It is a civil trial. It is not a criminal trial. So the differences between a criminal trial and a civil trial is the criminal trial, they actually would have broken the law and would have come with some sort of a criminal penalty, whether it's a fine or going into jail for a certain time, etc. This is a civil trial. And so what they have to determine is, first of all, whether or not somebody was damaged by this and how much that damage is worth. Well, the funny thing about this whole thing is that, number one, there's no real complainant. Okay? There's no bank, there's no individual who is saying that Trump harmed them in any way by doing what he supposedly is being accused of in terms of inflating his properties. Okay? So that's number one. Number one key point in this. Number two key point in all of this is that the judge decided to do something that has relatively been unheard of. I mean, first of all, just the charges being brought under the statute that they're attempting to get him on. It's unprecedented in the first place for him to even be tried, quote unquote, tried on this. But you also have the fact that the judge has done something unprecedented in terms of before the trial even really got started, the judge automatically entered what was called a summary judgment, meaning that the judge pretty much said, I don't even have to hear anything. I don't have to see any of the evidence. He's guilty. That's it. And part of the problem is that the judge is essentially claiming that Trump inflated his the value of his properties by like 2,300%. Now, I don't know about you, and I've kind of checked on this, but I've lived in a few different places, and typically what'll end up happening is your taxes, which is evaluated by the county, typically that you're in, county or city, they determine what your property is worth. And then they take that and they evaluate based on law how much you owe in taxes. Okay. But it's a government run appraisal. Now you have another valuation that happens, and that is the actual market value of your property. That's done by an appraiser in a bank. And there's terms and conditions, honestly, on those things where it says, hey, if you disagree with this appraisal or this valuation, feel free to do your own evaluation, because most of the time the appraisers actually work for the bank. I know that's the case in terms of my, private property here in the state of Washington. They have all of those T's and C's, which have, half the time nobody ever reads, but in there's usually some legalese that basically says, hey, if you disagree with the appraisal on this property and the evaluation of this property, you can appeal it, or you can have your own done and submitted as a part of the entire process. Now, normally that market value is actually higher than the taxable value in almost all cases. The value that is being taxed is lower. Just to restate it in another way, the value that is being taxed is actually lower than what somebody else would pay for the property. So this whole idea that he can just blanket say, well, the appraised value based on county records and taxes is X, and you valued it at Y, therefore the difference is, so much, and that it means that you committed fraud. Well, here's the thing. When a bank values a home, or a bank values a piece of property, they come to a consensus, especially if you're going to borrow money on that property, either to purchase it, or in the case of like a residential property, a home equity loan or something along those lines. There is the appraised value is what they kind of determine as to how much it is worth, so that they can figure out how much you can borrow against that piece of property. Now, that market value will go up and down with time. So if you hit it in a high note, then the market value is going to be higher. If you hit it in a low note, that market value is going to be lower. For an example, you can have just based off of the swing in the housing market, you could have, 1 year you could be valued at $250,000. The next year you could be valued at $750,000. But the bank goes and says, if you were to essentially the market value, if somebody were to go and buy this house today, how much would they be likely to pay? And so the same thing happens with corporations. And this is where this judge is, and I don't even understand. I mean, other than the fact that he's probably blinded by his TDS in this case, but he obviously owns a home. He's at least gone through it. I would certainly hope that he would understand the difference between market value and taxable value. I mean, I'm not smart. I didn't go to law school. I didn't become a judge, and I freaking know this. So it's not like it's a big, huge deal. But the other problems that this judge has is his attitude in court. The other day when Trump was testifying, the lawyers, of course, it got a little heated in the courtroom, let's say, because Trump's Trump. He's going to say what he thinks. He's a New Yorker. That's the way they go. But the thing about it is that his lawyer stood up and said, well, Judge, if you're not here to listen to my client, then what's the point in him being here? And the judge responded back with, I'm not here to listen to your client, or something to that effect. Not necessarily a direct quote, But the thing about it is this entire time, this judge, the procedures, everything, by all intents and purposes, most of the experts, the legal experts, all of the legal pundits and analysts across the board are all saying this will get thrown out on appeal. And I can guarantee you that Trump will appeal this. But this guy, his behavior, the things that he's ruling on, this is clearly an attack on this. So, yeah. So anyway, I wouldn't necessarily think much of this, even though the leftists, and believe me, all the leftists on X, as soon as I threw that out there talking about how this is, the judge doesn't know anything about real estate, apparently, in no uncertain terms, that they immediately jumped on it and said, well, Trump's guilty. Yeah, well, he's not guilty. Give me a break. So anyway, so there's that. The other one that is also happening is that apparently there was another legal analyst. This is the Jack Smith case in Washington, D.C., and they're even saying, this came in the Epoch Times, they're even saying that Jack Smith could be on shaky ground with the Trump charge. And in this one in particular, they're noting that the Trump charge of corruptly obstructing an official proceeding hasn't been extensively litigated over the past several decades, adding that a ruling could come on whether it is appropriate in the formal president's case. And this, by the way, when we're talking about appropriateness, this is not confirmed, but I did just see somebody saying that the case that was in Minnesota, the 14th Amendment case in Minnesota, has actually already been dismissed. They can't do it. The Supreme Court apparently, or the court up there, has already said, yeah, you're not going to do this here. And so they've dismissed the case up there. Now, again, that's unconfirmed. Please do not quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I did see something that initiated that. So don't be surprised if tomorrow they keep talking about it. But the thing about it is in terms of the gag order and everything that's going on here, that's probably going to get overturned because of the fact that you're gagging his First Amendment rights. So this particular case is going to be interesting to see as to what's going on with that. And I honestly think they're going to have some serious problems with this case, just like, I've been saying the entire time. But don't be surprised. Again, even if he's convicted of any of this stuff, chances are all it's going to do is up his value. And that's part of the problem with this entire situation in terms of what's going on here. Now, the Georgia election case, that one is probably the most damaging in terms of his potential legal troubles. That's like the top one. But yeah. So anyway, I mean, that's really the case. Now, really quick, in the last few minutes that I have, something came out from Jim Jordan, and I got to be honest with you, this is scary, because not only do we have the FBI and X, and the FBI and the FBI and X, the FBI and Facebook, but now they have some new emails that Jim Jordan put out in a report about the Election Integrity Project that was put together by Stanford and none other than the University of Washington in my home state here, which just doesn't surprise me any, but they apparently created this disinfo group that was censoring speech on the elections right before the 2020 election. So put it all together in a nutshell. Once again, we have a government agency, the Department of Homeland Security, the government agency that is using private non-governmental organizations to censor speech, American speech, in a clear violation of the First Amendment. And so this, I've got the actual, this is the actual document. This is coming out of the weaponization of the government committee. And this is the actual document. I haven't read through the whole thing, but the link, honestly, is in the show notes or the description of the video. And speaking of censorship, I'm not on YouTube tonight because YouTube is censored me for what I said last episode about the whole Pfizer vaccine forensic analysis. So, and they literally told me that's why. They called it medical misinformation or disinformation, which is wrong. But anyway, so yeah, so this report came out, and once again, it kind of shows that the government is actually using non-governmental organizations in order to censor our speech. So how anyone can sit here and say that our republic is not falling and stumbling right now is completely ridiculous. But again, as I said in the beginning of the show, I have hope. I am long on the United States, and finding all of this stuff out and having this proof as it's coming out is just fantastic. It is greater that this is happening. I mean, it sucks that it's happening, but it's good that it is, to take a line from the Democrats, because of the fact that we now have all of this evidence. We are proving what a lot of us knew ahead of time, which is the government itself is corrupt, and we need to fix it. To be open and realistic for you, I think that's actually probably Trump's greatest accomplishment, was that he exposed all of this. He drained it enough. He didn't drain it all the way, but he drained it enough that was able to show us what was lurking in the depths, and that we have to fix this. Now, another thing that has to get fixed, and here's the thing. So this is really, really quick here, but this was something that I saw in a couple different places, pulled it out. But the Gateway Pundit reported that voting machines went down in several districts in Pennsylvania due to, quote, votes getting flipped. Now, this is not the only place. Here in Washington, I just received some reports that our elections offices received a powder in, or at least our main election office in the biggest county that we have, went and received a powder that has since been identified as fentanyl. But as a part of that hazmat situation, they went ahead and shut down the other electoral offices, a couple other electoral offices in our state. So was it a coordinated attack? I don't know. Did it have anything to do with whether or not we're going to have, malfeasance? Well, that remains to be seen. But here again, we're looking at something that is not above board when it comes to these election systems. And so, yeah. This was several districts in Northampton County, Pennsylvania. The Lee or Lehigh, however you pronounce it, Valley News has reported that several voting machines in multiple districts across Northampton County are down due to votes getting flipped and not recorded properly, or recording properly. So this, again, people, 2020 happened. And we need to take a close look at all elections, because again, it's not so much whether or not it's, I guess it's pronounced Lehigh. So we need to examine all this. Whenever you have something questionable like what happened in 2020, it just makes sense to go back and do a forensic analysis and clean it up. All right. I obviously have not gotten to everything. I encourage you to go and take a look at the show descriptions on Rumble and if you can find it on Facebook and Twitter, that would be great too. So do me a favor. Thank you all for joining. I do appreciate it. Anyone who is brand new, welcome. I hope you come back. And if you decide to do so, I would sincerely appreciate you heading on over to rumble.com, finding or setting up an account. It's free to set up the account. Then find Whiskey Musings Broadcast. I'm the only channel with that name. You can find the Whiskey Musings Broadcast and hit the follow button, the green follow button, once you've signed in and logged in. We will see you on Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel. Have a great rest of your week. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings Broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.